Well, my name is Eugenio Reggianini. If you like to say, I have a funny story why I ended up in this in this industry. I professionally born in the legal space, and then for other reason, I moved into business, in consulting, advisory, and then in a specific moment of time, which is more or less during during the pandemic, I decided to turn my passion for blockchain and crypto asset into my profession and starting, let's say, everybody learning curve in this space, right? So what I do is I do many things. I represent different communities in different market segmentation for different services, identity, blockchain in general, providers. I mainly collaborate with European communities, even if I have like an Asian background in a few countries like Singapore, China, and so on. But yeah, most of my activity, it's in the intersection between product, market, and regulatory things. I tend to be very pragmatic. Usually companies build products and over product build services, right? Services are identified by use cases, which explain practically what the product can do. I'd say that it usually helps the company to originate, scope, and define the use cases from all the requirements which pertain to the business dimension of it. So regulatory, design, and business itself. It's not only compliance at all, like there are some compliance requirements which usually can be scoped into use case at the beginning, usually. But it's also requiring design skills. It's also requiring business and strategy skills. So it's a combination which, if you like, I was able to collect across my overall working experience. I started working almost like 10 years ago. So I did different things and I collected and I packaged for something which can have a fit in the industry. And aside of that, I do a lot of, let's say, community activity, even pro bono, and research, especially in the intersection between infrastructure things and regulatory compliance and design. I have been focusing a lot on the evolution and the innovation which happens in the account features which interacts over blockchain networks. I find this very interesting because these match a couple of things. The need for improve the user experience, the need for doing more simple things or things in a more simple way to get more user, to get adoption of the technology, and also the need of trust, which is, in other words, the need of compliance, business perspective, that is usually anchored to blockchain accounts, right? So from user perspective, how we can build more performant or better blockchain accounts that can solve the issue that we have as a community in terms of adoption, but also in terms of compliance. First of all, privacy, I would say, is a very broad meaning, I would say. As an individual, I think I would like to shift what I think from personal perspective and how much does it matter in what I do and the implication for the industry, right? So for me, also considering my legal background, privacy is a fundamental right of human being. Okay, so there are if not, few things that are more important. Maybe life is more important than privacy, but it's a very, very important thing and something which should be always taken into consideration when we implement service that are used by others. Which kind of implication have towards the industry and as a users? Different, in short. Going in more depth, of course, this privacy can be seen as usually as an extension of compliance for service providers. But at the same time, if providers care about the user needs, it's not just a requirement, but also an index, I used to say a matrix for feedback, right? Because especially for an industry which is foundational of an infrastructure, which is enabling user to manage their own data, the way in which I communicate this data sharing and the amount of data sharing that I enable with my action is key to determine the efficiency of a solution or not. So minimizing this and enabling a minimized data sharing goes into building more privacy-oriented services. So this is to say that, yes, privacy is, I would say for people in the industry, is existent, persistent, and a lifetime challenge, I would say, right? And it's something that is not living in a static state, but is evolving. As much as the technology evolves, you need to adapt the level of requirements that you set to yourself as a solution in order to ensure privacy to your users. Especially if you talk about blockchain, where which rely on the assumption that, at least for my personal view, privacy, it's I manage my key, I manage my tokens, I manage my assets. For me, there are different ways in which you can answer this question. Firstly, it depends on about what you are building to and where does it stays in the blockchain, let's say, transaction journey, right? If you're building an application, if you're building a smart contract, or if you're running a node or offering a service to node operators. So there are different ways in which you can try to take measure to ensure privacy at different level of this transactional journey. Generally, the easiest way is probably at the application layer, because when you are building an application as a service on top of smart contracts that maybe you even control, you are actually in the control of the data that you request from the users. So you can manage with policy, with agreements, which these data management with the end users. Then things get a little bit more complicated as long as you go down to the infrastructure, because this requires to, let's say, takes a lot of cryptographic features to minimize your data sharing, to maybe run your computation in an isolated environment, or using other cryptographic techniques to ensure private computation only between parties. So to say that the data is becoming, in a way, from pseudonymized to anonymized. So once the data becomes anonymized, then the overall infrastructure below architecture, which is made by different nodes operator, can process anonymized data, making sure that systematic or potential attacks on that infrastructure won't be able to reverse the information and getting access to the client or end client information at the end. Well, GDPR is one regulatory framework which apply for us in Europe. I would say that, yes, maybe it may result a little bit simplistic, my answer to that, but unfortunately, regulatory pieces are static pieces. Technology evolves, right? So as we are the technology's part is the part that is flexible and evolving. Unfortunately, technology needs to adapt to these static things that we have that rules us, let's say, in the off-chain world, which is the regulation. So I think it's it should be our goal trying to build a compliant solution that can address principles that are in those regulations. At the same time, it would be good that we have an exchange with institutions that are able to adapt and to modify slightly when it's possible those regulations to better fit the evolution of the technology itself. I'm saying for blockchain, but it's the same for AI. It's just the fact that when you build regulations, after 10, 15 years, technology evolves and things go to mainstream that were not possible to think at the beginning. So unfortunately, it's existential tension that it's up to industry participants and institutions try to work together to close the gaps. For me, from user perspective, I would be happy if, for instance, when accessing the services, it's quite clear and communicated the way in which the data is originated, is processed. I am kept informed if anything happens, if I am potentially subject to a hack. And these are all requirements which generally stands to within the GDPR framework, okay? And these are easy things to implement with communication and to manage. Then the problem is that, of course, everyone has a different level of minimal privacy, sense of minimal privacy, and this gets things a little bit more complicated. So from builder perspective, then instead, maybe, well, aside of one potential, how to say it, aside of the fact that if you are building with a privacy-preserving mindset, of course, privacy and compliance should be part of your vision as a corporate, as a project, for development. These imply the adoption of a set of features. Many, some of them I already mentioned. I don't want to sponsor one instead of others, right? But there are different cryptographic features which serve the purpose to protect the way in which the data is controlled, in sense managed and processed from my solution with all the other network participants in the blockchain, apps with end users or down with smart contracts and node operators. So I would say that maybe from user perspective is more principle based. For builder perspective is more proactive and more operational, also because when you're building services, you have risk assessment, all these kind of operational requirements, which are justified by the fact that you are at the end delivering a service for a market. I would say that generally the difficulties is creating a tension between different interests as a builder. So as a builder, I have a multiple tension of stakeholder needs, which I need to address. Money needs, investor needs, distribution needs, like business development needs. And so the product development cycle is stretched by different directions that sometimes privacy and consumer protection get lost. So this is probably one of the biggest operational issue that I see in the market, that probably because I need to deliver these upgrades, or I need to make this delivery very, very soon to outsmart one competitor or to reach a specific KPI, I delist those kind of features, which in long term are taken care about from feedback perspective by the users. So that's probably the biggest short-sighted mistake that I see in the building market. Another one is probably, and is more from let's say advice perspective, is trying to provide assessment and advice, not with a solution-based approach, but more with a regulatory-based approach, like to say, okay, the law says that, so that's it. I think that if the purpose of an advice is to provide an answer to a question, we need to start from where the question is, which is in the solution. So we start from the solution, we understand how the solution treats data, and based on that, we see what's working and what's potentially not. I'm very happy with the fact that privacy has returned a little bit on the top priority of many blockchain networks, because for sometimes I think the need of building and developing have overcome the need for privacy. But now that we are getting into a more mature stage of general adoption of the technology, people are still realizing that at the end, what we post on chain is fully visible. And so we need privacy to address also risk which happens off chain, to foster engagement, to prevent people misbehavior on chain, but also off chain. So I'm really happy that from Ethereum starting and other networks have reinforced the need for privacy as one of the core features and a public good for network operations and development. One advice that I would do to everyone is to take maybe privacy as a principle, as a reference, but be flexible. Because the moment you take it in a very strict way, you're either enter into conflict even with regulatory parameters or with your willing to build something cool.